All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today in our 58th installment of our EO Exchange series. Hope you have learned some valuable steps in your legacy and estate planning process, which have leaned so far towards the personal side. But today, we're going to focus on legacy planning and our business succession strategies. We'll hear from experts Kyle Kerrigan with Viking Mergers and Acquisitions and Abby Spalding with Continuum Planning Partners. Kyle leads the Nashville office for Viking. He has over 20 years business development, finance, and operations experience from some of the most respected names in American business. Most recently, he led the successful turnaround of GNC's Canadian business unit, and previous to that, held significant roles in operations and finance at Carrier Corporation and FedEx. Kyle is also a veteran of the U.S. Army. Thank you for your service. Abby became a financial partner in 2008 in Washington, D.C. A Nashville native, she moved back in 2011, where she worked at Capital Financial Group, and in 2015 founded Continuum Planning Partners, a comprehensive financial planning firm. Abby is an NBJ 40 under 40, as well as being named to their Power Leaders in Finance list. Key takeaways today will include identify and coach potential successors, understand the legal and financial implications of various exit strategies, discover how to maximize the value of your business in the event of a sale or transfer, and more. So thank you for joining us this morning. And Abby and Kyle, it's all yours.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'll kick us off. Our game plan is to be pretty casual this morning. I want to put that out there first. If anybody has any questions, please stop us in the middle of anything we're doing. I was going to introduce myself and then pass it to Kyle. I think David did an excellent introduction, so I won't elaborate too much. The only thing I'll add is we do fee-based consulting, financial planning for individuals and business owners. And a lot of that falls and folds into risk management and how to make sure that we think about a positive exit and what we sometimes call a immediate exit, which would be something that yours is unforeseen. And so Kyle and I are going to kind of switch off here and there between those discussion points. But Kyle, I'll kick it to you.
Thanks, Abby. And if you don't mind pulling up the presentation, that'd be great. Thanks, David, for the introduction as well. I clearly need to update my biography. I've been in Nashville it's my 4th year here in Nashville, running this office. So most recently, I was not turning around Canada GNC, but it was a great experience. So a little bit to add on Viking. So we help business owners. We say from $1 million to $100 million in value to basically confidentially go through a confidential bid process and find the right partner for them. We do like to start a process with the business evaluation, which we offer for free. It's a good way to kind of get the conversation started. And, while I'm going through a lot of stuff today that's more general, we can get far more specific when we step into that process. So that said, if you want to move on, Abby, not sure how delayed these are. So we'll just talk about the agenda real quick. So these are the agenda topics. I'm going to take about the first half. We've got some crossover in the art of maximizing value. Abby and I will talk through that, and then she'll take it from there. But please, as Abby said, we prefer more informal. We understand it's Zoom. People aren't generally speaking up on Zoom, but would love for questions to come if you have them. So please feel free to ask questions as we move along. All right. First and foremost, all of you guys have good businesses that I'm sure are operating efficiently. Abby, if we can move to the next one. And so some of this stuff, I'm sure you're already doing pretty well. And so hopefully a lot of this is a refresher. But some of the things that we think about when we help businesses exit. So we try to help business owners think through what's the easiest way or the most efficient way to exit, or how can you have the highest value, the most interest, all those the smoothest transition, all those things. So that's what we try to help business owners think through. And here's the thing: no matter how you plan to exit, doing these things are helpful no matter what. I would argue that they're going to make your business more efficient and more effective by doing them. And some of these things are just general practical, these things already, and hopefully you're doing them, but it's helpful to be reminded of these things because we all all of us on this call have a business and we're running it and we get our heads down. I do the same thing with my business. I put my head down and I just get focused at the tasks that are in front of me. And it's helpful to pick our heads up. And so Samir and team, we always are grateful that you put together these conversations to help us pick our head up, basically. But first and foremost, cultivate your legacy. So the way we think about that is, you're an entrepreneur, you have a business, what's made you successful is like just willpower. Oftentimes is just working hard, doing something very well over and over and over and over again to where you are the best at it. And that is a great way to start a business. Most businesses start that way. But to build a more transferable business, you need to start to extract yourself from that business and to build those capabilities, those capacities, those skill sets, et cetera, in your team, in the people that you bring on. And so these are just some simple things like, hey, you need, make sure you've got mentorship programs. Teach your employees what you do and how to do that. If you can write down your processes and standardize them at some level to where they're more transferable, that's always very helpful. And then, so ensure your business is able to continue operating smoothly, independently of you. One of the things we like to say is, when was the last time you took a vacation and you were able to take a vacation? I think it's a good question to ask yourself. If you feel like you can't, and I get it, if you're on startup phase, probably can't do that, and that's okay. I've been there. Most of us have been there, and there are times where you can't do that. But when you're 5, 10, 15, 20 years into your business, you should be able to do that. And if you can't, then you need to start thinking about your team. Klaus, I saw Klaus on this call. I really enjoyed Klaus, and I like to give him a hard time about his vacations. He likes to go on vacation, but I actually highly respect the fact that he gets away as much as he does. It tells me a lot about him, his business, and his team. And it says, he doesn't need to keep his hand on the steering wheel 100% of the time, like knuckles gripped. And I think that says a lot about his business. And I think, it's something that's important to think about with your own business. Abby, we can move on to the next one. I don't remember who all you spoke to. Maybe you spoke to an accounting firm. I saw Megan on here. I know she's got a bookkeeping company. I'm sure there are others in the EO as well, but strong accounting records are highly important. And that, I will tell you, even if it's just to run your business, you can run your business far better when you have good financial records. When you line up your revenue with your expense, that's essentially accrual basis, those kinds of things. And good bookkeeping services can help you to do that. I get it early on. It doesn't make sense when maybe you're small transactions or minimal, but as you grow your business and the transactions increase, your costs increase, it's important to build this in, because I will tell you that in general, unless you've got good bookkeeping, good records of your business, it is very difficult to sell your business. And there are businesses that we're working with today to where we said, hey, you got a great business, making good money. We could sell you, we could get a good value for your business. But what we need you to do is we need you to go back and kind of update your records. And actually sometimes, in some cases, get your records, besides just doing your tax returns, do your records. And so this is something that's really important. Clean books are really important. The thing that we see oftentimes make deals fall apart is when people start asking about the financials and there aren't good answers to them. So this is good for running any business, but particularly for trying to bring someone in and have someone to hand over your business to someone else. Abby, go ahead. All right. One of the things I love about the EO is the fact that I think the reason that most, if not all of us, are in here is that we recognize that we don't have all skill sets and we can't be good at all things. That's why we have forums. That's why we have people that are speaking into our lives, asking us good hard questions, making sure, helping us think through these things, helping us work through things. And so for running a transaction, for selling your business, whether it's to a family member or to someone outside, to do that, I think it's important to have good, solid people around you, helping you to think through these things, so that the way we think about it, when we run a transaction, we are one piece of that. We are working with your CPA, we're working with your attorney, or actually more specifically an M&A attorney, but you do need to have an attorney. I know you guys have already talked to, I believe was Matt that spoke with you guys on the legal side. You got a banker, financial planner, Abby's here. They're a great resource. And then obviously, your spouse, they're going to be an trusted advisor through this too. And so it's important to have these people around you, to have some of these conversations ahead of time. Again, we all know what's led to this series. I'm not going to go into that, but like, you need to have these conversations, on a regular basis. I don't mean like every week or every month, but once a year, twice a year, something like that. I think it's important to have these conversations. Like, where are you? Where are we? What's going on? What's the vision of the future? And so these are some of the people that we think are important, particularly for a transaction, but even before a transaction, just to make sure you're running your business well. All right, let's move to the next one. So, art of maximizing your value. So we hit on a couple of these topics in the first couple of slides, but the way we think about it is this: good, better, best businesses. Good businesses, we work with them, we can take them to market, we can get a good value for them. But as you move across this screen, I don't know which way it goes for you. For me, it's left to right. But good, having good housekeeping, clean books, we've talked about those types of things. That's a good business. The way to kind of increase your multiples, increase the value, is by moving towards the best category. And so things like the things that people are thinking about are like recurring revenue, customer concentration, those kinds of things that help to just elevate your business more. We have a business now. I was just in Charleston. We were working with a business. We are working with a business owner. They've had huge interest. Over 100 interested parties, 40 plus IOIs, and we just met with 6 or 7 of the final candidates. Part of what made them so attractive, they have excellent systems. They have a great team below them. All these things, and so the more you can shift your business towards that right side of the screen, the better off you're going to be, not just in operating your business, but ultimately in transacting it. Abby, I don't know I think you had something to add here as well.
Yeah, I think it's on the next slide, but I mean, I'll dovetail on this, and it really goes to, I think, your earlier comment about being able to go on vacation. A good business the owner can sometimes leave, but the best businesses, they really can step away and examine these transactions and have the time and energy to look into them.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
So on this side, we're going to kind of switch to the planning piece. And I always make the comment with our business owner clients, the dollar you make in the business is the same dollar you worry about at home. So building a financial plan, both for the business and for you personally, makes all the difference in the world. We always talk to our clients, particularly our business owner clients, about, if you're going to have a liquidation event in your company, let's make sure it's the right amount for you. What does that number need to be? There's never a maximum, but there's always a minimum. So if your lifestyle needs to have a transaction that is north of 15 million, and Kyle does a business valuation for you and you find out that you're at 12, well, it's not time to sell. If your valuation is the same and you need 10 million and Kyle does valuation and shows you at 12, now we're at a different discussion point. And so writing down those plans and goals, you guys know this, especially given all the talks that EO has done. The research around having written goals, I looked it up this morning. If you have written goals, you're 36% more likely to accomplish them. If you share those goals with someone else, you are 76% more likely to accomplish that goal. I mean, it is, I know, David is here with Petra as well. I mean, again, thinking about what all Petra does by way of goal setting and all for businesses and writing them down and tracking to those as well. People actually accomplish their goals when they do that. It's not rocket science, but thinking about what happened to Matt and making sure that you have to that bullet point, a living document for the future of what your intent is, what you would like to have happen, what the goals are of this company, makes all the difference in the world. One of the things that we see oftentimes too is, happy to answer any questions if anybody's coming off mute. But operating agreements. In the context of Kyle's good, better, best, this one is something that we find that people do when they open their company, and particularly if you have partners, and never look at it again. And it is a document you throw in your file drawer and are completely forget about. And this document really needs to be reviewed at least every 3 years. This sets an appropriate valuation calculation for your business if something were to happen. And we think about that if something were to happen in a death situation, a disability situation, a divorce, which means I no longer like my partner and I want out, and a disinterest. I like my partner, but I don't want to do this anymore. And it is going to set a calculation for that so that it doesn't get ugly. And I'll point that out in the context too of if you have a partner and your partner has not done a very good job on their personal finances and they pass away, their spouse is going to want to get maximum valuation for this company because that's all they have. Well, if there's not a written calculation that is updated because something you set 15 years ago is no longer applicable, you either could really hurt them by holding that accountable and saying, oh, well, this is what our thing said, or hurt the business and say, we don't have, this is going to tank the entire company to do a payout like this. So they really do need to be reviewed every 3 years. I'm going to talk really quickly about types of business insurance policies. And these are not all life insurance. Some of them are disability insurance, but these are the types of policies all, and I will emphasize, all business owners need. If you do not have these as a business owner, you're missing it. I have yet to meet one business owner who does not need this. So you are not excluded if you do not have these. Personal life insurance starts first. Don't let the business be the exclusive cash account for your family. You need to be able to take care of your family with personal life insurance of what, if something were to happen, and I'll kill myself in this scenario, what does my husband need and what do my children need? The second is buy, sell. And I'm actually going to stop sharing just because I use my hands a lot and I think it's more helpful. Buy, sell insurance is a external transaction. If Robert Young and I are business partners, I'm just picking on you because you're next on my screen. If we are business partners, he and I would want buy, sell insurance on each other. And what that we have a $10 million business because we are killing it. We both need $5 million of life insurance because we own this company 50-50. That is simple. It's not that simple because your company is typically growing. So usually the business is worth $3 million because it's growing, and we go, let's get 2 million each so that we buy up a little bit. But if I were to pass away, Robert gets a insurance death claim that is used to pay out my spouse, because if it's not there, Robert's now in business with my husband. My husband gets full ownership and access of my shares. And 99% of the time, you don't want to be in business with someone's spouse. You want to be in business with your business partner. And so it's to buy them out. That buy-sell insurance can buy them out in a large chunk and then continue to pay them with profits of the business if it's not the full amount, but it at least gets that spouse some liquidity immediately. The second form is key person insurance. Again, Robert and I are business owners, and Robert is vital to the business. If he gets hit by the proverbial bus, everything he does would fall on me and I can't do it. And so I am going to put key person insurance on Robert so that if something were to happen to him, I can have an influx of cash to the company. I can hire a headhunter. I can really pay for the right person to come in. And that coverage covers him. Well, I'm going to pick on somebody else here. David is my salesperson and he has zero ownership. But if David gets hit by the proverbial bus, we lose all of our sales pipeline and we are set backwards by several years, given how long our sales cycle is. Well, I'm going to put some insurance on David as a key person. And you typically calculate that by a percentage of their income. It's usually 2 to 3% of their income, which usually is not that big of a cost by way of insurance. The other, which usually gets forgotten quite often, is disability insurance. So disability insurance is a funky setup because there's a real moral obligation here. Again, Robert and I are business partners. Robert gets hit by the proverbial bus and is disabled and no longer can be my partner. Well, Robert is alive and well, and his family is taking care of him. I'm going to cut off his income. I'm going to say I'm not going to give you distributions anymore because you're not coming to work. Like, we're partners. We built this together. But I now have to hire someone to replace Robert for what he was doing and pay him because I can't put him in a really negative and terrible situation. No, what you'd want to do is let the insurance company pay his salary so that you can hire somebody else. There's also disability buy sell. We're business owners and you are completely disabled and cannot come back. Well, I need to buy you out of this company. And disability buy sell can pay you out, is very much like buy sell life insurance, but you leverage assets outside of the company to do that. I put this together and I'll show, thanks, George. I appreciate your comment in there. I put this in here to show a basic needs curve for insurance. This is on the personal side. Obviously, when you are young and your business is young and your liabilities are young and your children are young, you are growing pretty quickly along that curve of your need for insurance goes up. As you become financially independent and get more assets and pay off more of your debts and your kids get older and they get more and more out of the house, that need goes down. I always make the comment with people who have young obviously in parentheses, but young kids, you're at your most expensive for insurance yesterday because their kids are at your youngest, your assets are at their lowest, and your debts are typically at their highest. As those things come down, you typically go down in that curve. For those of you who have grandchildren, that's usually what spikes that at the very end of your life, where they go, oh my gosh, I want to leave a legacy. And do I have enough insurance in place? Is the insurance I have going to last my whole life? Do I need anything at the end of my life to take care of any inheritance? I put together one very similar for a business needs curve. It is very different. It is a high spike when your business is getting off the ground. It's not worth a lot, and therefore you don't need a lot of insurance. But as your business becomes worth more, it spikes up. As you get closer and closer to a sale, that need comes down. That's where that business sale falls off there. Because if Kyle can sell this business and you aren't dependent on this business, let's say you are 3/4 the way there and Kyle can sell it with or without you, the spouse can run it. The spouse just got an influx of cash because you have some personal insurance. And the spouse can step in and go, Kyle, sell this business. Here's all this money that I can put in the company if I need to hire a CEO, but go sell it. Because you have some key person insurance, you have some buy-sell insurance, you have some personal insurance to cover that, and that need starts to come down the list. This last slide is our biggest and weightiest and heaviest slide that we hope everyone has been stewing and writing down diligently all the questions that they have. Anybody have any questions? Just looking through the chat too, that we want to talk through. Yeah, Angie put a really good comment. Angie and I were working on this as well, but that disability, you can have a disability clause that the payments decrease if payment from the company would cause the insurance to decrease. Like you can basically you can structure a equation that is appropriate for your business based off of needs and what you would want to, how you want to take care of your partners and employees and those types of things. I'm going to try to make as awkward of silence as possible to see if we can get anybody to ask a question.
So I have a minority partner, and she might be looking to retire. I mean, I intend to work, waddle into the office, until I'm about ready to drop dead. But if she may be looking to retire, and I really hadn't even thought about it until you started this discussion, but at some point I'm going to need to, if she wants to retire, I'm going to have to pay out her equity in the company. How do you recommend we, plan for that and prepare financially for that?
That's a great question. Typically what we see in those situations, and Kyle, you can speak to this too, is an owner financed agreement where you set a valuation, you fix the price and say, okay, on January 1, we're going to start this buyout. So the price of the company, especially if that partner is no longer there to increase the value, you've kind of fixed the price of the company. And then you owner finance that with cash flow of the business. It actually works really well from a tax standpoint because you've shifted her income and distributions as taxable income to a taxable gain to her, which is a lower tax bracket, and a real benefit to the company because it's a payout, not a distribution. And so it really helps from a tax standpoint. And you set a structure for how long that payout will last. Usually people want a little bit of a bite off the top, like right at the jump, and say, okay, let's kick this off with, I'm clearly making this up, $100,000 at the first payment. And then we'll do $20,000 a month for 3 years. And then after that, you've completely bought that individual out and you're able to take full profits from the company.
Yeah, I agree with what Abby's saying. Apologies. I think probably part of your question is also like, what's that price point, right? Like, how much is the business worth? And that is a harder conversation. Ideally, the operating agreement will spell something out. We see a lot of, some operating agreements, I don't want to say a lot, but some operating agreements where there's a clear triggers, put calls, those kinds of things. It says, hey, trailing 12 month of EBITDA or something like that is defines kind of what the price point is and what that equity is worth. What I would recommend is if you don't have that in your operating agreement today, that while things are going smoothly and well, that you put that in and where you're kind of all friendly and you can agree to that so that it becomes, because then when people are on the way out, that's when people tend to, it just gets a little more, it can create more conflict. So ideally do that on the very front end. If you haven't done on the very front end, do it now while you have a good, while business is humming and everything. We're never going to separate. We're never going to break up. I'd say that's a good thing to have in there because, value is, it's at some level, that's kind of part of what we do is we're negotiating on behalf of someone or both parties to get what's the reasonable price point.
Yeah, it's basically your prenup. Everybody loves each other, but it's your prenup. And David, I would also, what we stress to our clients all the time is this is an internal valuation, not a fair market value. So we had a client who had a piece of property and the business owner had a disinterest. One of the partners wanted out and they wanted that property as part of the deal. Well, the property was a pretty shitty piece of property, excuse my language, but it was ripe for a developer to come in. And a developer did come in eventually and buy that property and put condos on it. Well, the partner wanted a fair market value for it as if his original partner was the developer. And that's not realistic. This is an internal purchase, and that operating agreement sets that price. Exactly to Kyle's point, it says we like each other and here's what's happening and this is what we agreed to, not what the market could get for it. And I mean that more in the business. Obviously, on a real estate side, you get appraisals, and that's a little bit
And
easier. But even then, it's not fair market. It's not what a builder could purchase it for and develop it. It's what it's worth as its raw land.
The
So
saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And so, the famous saying is, what is, a property or a business worth? It's worth what someone's willing to pay for it. I actually don't fully agree with that. I think a business is worth, it's the inflection point between what someone's willing to pay for it and what the owner is willing to give it up for. That's what a business is worth. And so we have a lot of businesses that come in and say, well, my business is worth up here. And we say, well, it's actually here. And the point is, like, what we're saying is the market's going to tell you this. If it's worth here, great. You need to keep it and keep running it until the market agrees with you. And so that's the difficult part with kind of how do you define that? The reason people pay money for businesses is because they believe they can extract more value out of it. As soon as that price point gets above where they say, hey, I can't pay this and make a profit off of it, then they're not going to pay for it. And so that's finding that inflection point is tough. But particularly when there's no reason to sell, right? So, and then it looks like, George, we've got another question here from you. What about employee agreements as they relate to overall health of the company? I'll take the first stab at that. So what I'll say is, in general, if you have W-2 employees versus contract employees, it's generally better. It's superior. As far as employee agreements go, there is some value in that. I don't think there's as much value as just having a pure W-2. There's more tie-in. It's not a bad thing to do, but I don't see a lot of additional incremental value by having employee agreements. Because here's why. There's two reasons. One, that is a good thing, but two, what can also, in some buyers' minds, it says, well, why do you need employment agreements? Don't they enjoy working for you? So there are good things about it, bad things about it, but definitely W-2 is better than contract employee. I don't know, Ab, if you have anything to add.
By way of value, I agree with you. I'm not sure it adds any intrinsic value, but I think what it does do is it's a risk management piece, so that, again, the first person that's going to sue you is an employee, and it's a risk management piece to say, here's our agreement. We held to this agreement. Here's what I benchmark your performance on. Here is when we said we would do our reevaluations and that sort of thing. So the only thing I would comment on it, if you are going to have employee agreements, look at them. Don't do it once and ignore them, and then do something different in practice than you say you're going to do on said agreement, because from a risk management side, it could backfire. But I wouldn't say it adds value or decreases value.
And you guys see Angie Lawless's comment. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I think we talked about it again. I would say that the gist of that is that you can build your operating agreement to be very specific to your industry. Angie's business needed to have decreasing payments given the nature of her company, whereas someone else actually might want increasing payments for the nature of their company and what said partner contributed. And they may want to structure it to go, well, this is bullshit. I was at the beginning. If something happened, I want our partners to benefit in that growth. Long story short, you can customize it to be very specific to your industry and your business and your partners and what their own personal situations are. And then build that calculation in your operating agreement that can be alive and well in that business. And I mean that meaning, like, again, don't set it and never forget it, never look at it again. It's a set it, dust it off every 3 to 5 years and go, yep, this is exactly what we still want, or no, a lot has changed. Let's restructure this. But you can customize it to your own business.
So my background's accounting and finance. So I feel like I can figure out, I frequently calculate my EBITDA and can do a fair adjusted EBITDA. But is there a resource somewhere where you can go to find, for an industry specific, what are the current market multiples of EBITDA. Is it something that there's a company that provides, that tracks that, and Kyle, when you're going to go look at a business valuation, you go and say, hey, I pull up this resource and it says it's 7.2 times EBITDA or 3.1 times EBITDA.
Yeah, we have those resources. I mean, you pay for them, and we have them. And so if you need that, David, feel free to reach out, and I can get those for you for your industry. That's not a problem. As part of the business valuation is looking at those. We look at it through 3 lenses: comps, industry standards, and then cash flow analysis, just basically what would a bank lend against it. So that's how we do our business valuation. That's part of it. But if you just want comps or a business valuation, we can do that. But feel free to reach out, and we can get that for you.
I almost interjected and was like, yeah, it's called Viking. It's not you hire comp.
Abby, you spoke about key person insurance, and I looked at that very early on when I acquired my business and found it basically unaffordable or so expensive that I never pursued it any further other than looking at it at the beginning. Is that really affordable, or was it just a fluke that my broker came back with?
That's surprising. Now, all life insurance is priced off of age, sex, and health. Men are a little more expensive than women because you all die first. The younger you are, the healthier you are. And, if you have good health and you don't smoke and those types of things, it should be less expensive. Typically, key person insurance, though, isn't a price prohibitive purchase. Again, if you're taking a salesperson, and let's assume this salesperson is making $250,000, you're looking at buying a $500,000 to $750,000 life insurance policy on them. It's not $4 million or $10 million of life insurance. So you're not talking, and again, I know 750,000 is a lot, but from a life insurance price standpoint, it's really not. You can structure it. The other price component is how long does the coverage last? So if, think about it from the risk side of an insurance policy. If it's a short time frame, it's lower cost than a longer time frame because they're opening up themselves to risk. Well, I mean, you all own businesses. Your business cycle is really 3 years, but let's call it 3 to 7. So we usually recommend either buying 5-year or 10-year term insurance for key person insurance, because those individuals may or may not stay with you for the entirety of your business. And so it's really, if you're buying 5 to 10-year term insurance for, hell, let's call it $1 million for a 45-year-old male, that's a couple $100 a year. I mean, it wouldn't bust your bank at all. Now, what you do see sometimes get proposed, right, wrong, or indifferent, is permanent insurance for key individuals, and you use it as a deferred comp plan. And it's a little bit of a golden handcuff that you can do for employees, particularly employees that don't have ownership. And those are much more expensive, but you're having savings vehicles, you're sharing some of that benefit to the individual and their spouse, and you do what's called a split dollar plan for those. So you pay a $10,000 premium, but $10,000 of cash shows up in the policy that the insured gets vested after they've been there for 5 years or something like that. And those can be really pricey, but it's a completely different use because you're using it as a incentive tool to keep employees.
Sorry, what were they called?
Those are called they're typically called split dollar and deferred comp plans. The idea being that if you are going to hire your salesperson away, they're going to leave $100,000, $150,000, $250,000 on the table in this policy that they have built up over years with you. And it gives them a pause to leave, or they got to make a really awkward ask to the new owner of, I'm going to need a signing bonus because I'm walking away from a $75,000 pot over here, and it's vested. So again, that's that golden handcuff component that you can utilize for that. And then if what ends up happening, let's again pretend it's a $10,000 premium, and let's just pretend it's $1 million of life insurance. And after 3 years, that individual does die, the business gets $30,000 of that policy because they get their premiums back, and their family gets $970,000 of coverage. Or you split it and say, well, the business needs 450,000, and that was in our agreement, and their spouse gets the remaining as a perk of being an employee here.
Thank you.
All right, I'll throw out another scenario. A closely held business, the owner passes away and transitions the management of the company to one of their children, but there's 2 other children. How do you usually structure that? How's that usually done to try to make things fair?
Well, we always say fair is not equal and equal is not fair. We really want to have, again, to Kyle's slide, and have a written plan and build a model for that. Like let's hope and pray that doesn't happen at death and we are trying to equalize. Because I have a client whose parent died, they inherited the business. Their 2 siblings were equalized by life insurance. So their 2 siblings each got $5 million, and they bought new homes, they bought beach homes, they sent their children to private school. And the other sibling who got the business got to go up every day and go to work. And again, it was equal, but they would argue that was not at all fair. And so we try really hard to have those conversations of what is fair and what is equal. And a lot of that is what, we want to put on paper. We always say the math will set you free. So let's run it down and put it on paper and go, how does this feel? Are we getting close to fair and equal? Or can we get those things as close to parity as possible? Again, life insurance helps a lot so that we can equalize each other with that. And the other thing is that business is typically, hopefully, having a good cash flow business, and so that weighs into that discussion. But that's not the easiest of answers, because it's also pretty customized to the individuals. But trying to equalize the others with either other assets or insurance, but providing liquidity for all 3 in some way, shape, or form. That might be in the form of retirement accounts or investment accounts, or it might be in the form of insurance.
Well, if the business has a really good cash flow, can you not just do it with ownership and pay and salary and bonuses for the person operating?
Yeah, I mean, again, that would be ideal. The question is, are they also the operator? You know what I mean? Are they having to really work and grow this business? Now, they got a big step up in this, in the sense that they basically inherited an established business versus going out and purchasing one or building one themselves. Again, in that fair is not equal and equal is not fair. They at least got a jump start in this. But typically what the second gen would want needs to weigh in on this a little bit, as well as making sure that second gen actually has ownership rights there. But you want to make sure that they're not actually in business with their other siblings too on accident, that's in writing. Because that can cause a lot of friction between siblings if one person has to work there and make distributions to their siblings who's not, because the business just got split. But it really depends on your comment on the business, and if the business is cash flowing and does have good distributions, then it could be a little bit more equal to just pass that down. It depends a lot on the stage of the business.
Well, I found a lot of value in my questions and your answers, so I hope everybody else is. But any other questions? If I don't see anything in the chat right now, but speak up if you've got something that's on your mind. And if I don't see any more, I think we're going to go into breakouts.
Well, if I may, maybe one more question, and this is around trust, the pros and the cons of having your assets in a trust versus just having them as, assets individually, loosely owned.
I'll take that one, Kyle. So businesses are somewhat hard to be in trust. They're not impossible, but they are operating entities. Keep in mind when you give, it depends on the type of trust. Typically what we were talking about is irrevocable trusts, which means you've given up control. Now you can split ownership and control. So a lot of times what we'll see is somebody say, I'm going to have voting and non-voting shares, and I'm going to maintain 1% voting and 99% non-voting, and I'm going to put my non-voting shares into a trust that my spouse is the beneficiary of, and my children would be after that, but I have control. I no longer have ownership, but I can control distributions, and then growth can happen out of your estate. Like all issues with control and ownership and trust, that it does add a layer of complexity, but it can allow growth and creditor protection and distribution assets to be a little cleaner. But you want to make sure that you're still bankable. If the business needs to borrow things, if the business and you're personally guaranteeing it, you only own 1%. So there's some pros and cons to it, but if you got a growing business, it's not a bad thing. You can put other assets in revocable trusts. And just like that comment says, it means that you have still maintained control. It's not out of your estate, but what it does do is it avoids probate. It gives clear direction to your beneficiaries and your heirs of what that asset is going to do. And it provides a lot of post-life control, meaning that if you have somebody who would not be prudent with the money, couldn't handle the money, you have somebody to sit alongside with them so that they can't just blow it on accident.
All right, guys. Any more, Klaus?
Okay.
Last chance. Great free advice. If there are no more questions, I think it's time for us to go into our breakouts.
Perfect. I will do that right now. And then Danielle, do you want to go just verbalize the questions you want them to kind of chat through in the group?
Yeah, so we have 2 questions we should try to knock out in our breakouts if you have time. Hopefully there's great discussion. The first question is, what is one way you plan to reevaluate your business succession strategy after hearing all you've heard today? And then 2 is, how are you actively valuing your business right now?
Perfect. All right, I'm going to open rooms and then we'll come right back.